Luke, hi, how are you?
Hey man, good to see you.
See you. So I really enjoyed this movie, Wildcat. I felt like it was so deeply felt timely of the moment right now. What were some of the things that you felt like in terms of thematically and just why did you want to be a part of this movie?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll start. I've said this to Jonathan many times. Jonathan Stokes is the writer director. The the first piece, obviously, to making a movie is the script. And I read this script, and immediately, even on the page, it was a wild ride of emotion. Really, I mean, obviously, the circumstances. It's a thriller. It's very intense. There's a lot of questions and mystery wrapped up in the unraveling of where they are and what's happening and how they're going to get out. But the dialogue is such a grounded take on these characters and these circumstances that it allows the audience to feel, and I'm not a trained soldier. I don't know if that's a surprise, but I am, I've done like a couple boot camps and stuff getting ready for like some military roles I've played, but I by no means am conditioned for torture. And I was still able to see myself in this role despite feeling completely alienated from these circumstances. And I thought that was such a incredible thing as far as this piece transcending and actually touching people the way that you said, which is obviously the goal of art, is to shake the foundation, force people to feel something. And I got to the end of the script and I was like, whoa, like that's heavy, yes, but also like I feel equally as convicted as I do alive, and like I smiled and like I hurt, and it was just beautiful. And I think that really comes from the grounded nature. But one thing I love too, that jumps out to me is this character of Abu Khalid is so layered, and it's not like he's immediately like, he obviously you get into and you're like, oh, it's the bad guy, here comes the bad guy, and then you listen to these things he says in these conversations and his motivations as to why he's here and why he's doing this, and you're like, whoa, like it's such a complex character that it immediately humanizes him. And it's not just as simple as like, we're the good guys, they're the bad guys, like, and I feel like that's just what's thrown in our face so much. And it's like, no, this character was a lover. He wanted a family. He wanted life. He wanted joy and happiness. And it was hate that instilled this in him and has turned him into what he is now, and operates from a place that is what he knows at this point, is all that he knows. And so that for me was one that I was like, whoa, because I was obviously the other side of like, Georgina's in the middle and she's kind of blowing to both sides. I was kind of the other side where like, I didn't have, all the perfect qualities. Like, I don't think that the character of Luke is necessarily one where you're like, he's the hero, like he has those qualities, sure. But like, he also has those things where you're like, oh, that's not a good look. And I think that that's the beauty of this piece, is like, it lives in the gray area. So I think it emulates life really well in that sense. And that comes with both sides having their kaleidoscope of layers. So yeah, it's powerful.
How does that feel for you playing a character called Luke? You're not a Marine.
Yeah.
It's not you, but certainly you do seem like a person that is sort of influenced by ideas of morality, certainly on
Sure.
screen in your life. How deeply do you feel this character? How does he feel like you?
Yeah, it's, as I kind of touched on, obviously, like there is some separation, as there is between all actors and characters. And so to bridge that gap, I really wanted to find the humanity in him, because obviously, soldiers are not all the same. It's not like we're working with, the clone army from Star Wars. Sorry, I'm a big Star Wars guy, but
Yeah.
Each one is individual. And so there's a whole, obviously they're conditioned for torture, yes, but some people break and some don't. So why does that happen? And I wanted to find that through line between myself and Luke, which is a weird thing to say, but you know what I mean. And there was a line that he has in the film that I wrote across the front of my script. It kind of became my mantra as to like, when I wanted to really get in his headspace, I would just kind of like say it to myself. And it was, I don't want to die for nothing. And, what that meant to me is like, yes, in these circumstances, he doesn't want to die. But in the start of the movie, he's suffering from a gunshot wound, and he's clearly not being tended to. So I do think that thing in the back of his head is like constantly like ticking, it's ticking. Like you either got to get out or like, so that became a really strong motivation for me in that character and it also tied me immediately to him. Because, I definitely have a strong sense of loyalty to my friends, my family. I, will make decisions at all times to, do what's best for them. And I saw that in him as well. And, going through boot camp and stuff, I kind of assimilated it to, like football. And I obviously know one is very extreme and one is a little bit more normal, but the feeling of going through workouts, summer workouts, and, really like grinding with, your comrades, it creates this bond that is unspoken and hard to do any other way. And so I just, heightened that for what Luke would feel about his brothers and sisters next to him, and that he, left behind and that he's fighting for. And it became really the driving force, and the thing that connected me most to him was that sense of loyalty and that sense of fighting for something bigger than him. And I think that ultimately was his, great motivation to where his arc takes him, which I'm not going to get too much, but yeah.
What's the experience like of filming in such a, like a confined space, having Georgina there too, and also a very small cast as well. Certainly that can deepen now. Those feelings come up differently, post-pandemic, but what was the experience like at the time?
It was honestly really refreshing. We shot it in Burbank, which doesn't happen very often. And so I was able to go home and reset in my own space and sleep in my own bed, and not have to feel confined when I'm working and then confined in a hotel room again after. But it takes place all in one room, and so that allowed for us to shoot in sequence, which was really great too. I cut down on my diet really heavy to get ready for this, and I wanted to look gaunt, especially by the end, and pale, and so that allowed for me to track my overall digression of myself through to the end, and allowed to maintain that and ultimately get my headspace kind of very congruent with his arc. And so that was really cool. But no, with Georgina, it was incredible. It was obviously the whole film is us kind of against them, and so it's us trying to get away. And so there was that sense and that mounting sense the whole time of like the growing plan and the growing partnership, and because we shot in sequence, we were able to really easily just kind of maintain that arc. And so I honestly loved the process of this. It was gritty, and like I remember getting off on my last day and calling my manager and being like, this is the bar. Like, this is like, I feel so alive. I feel like I was able to fully like immerse myself and connect, and like I was impacted by the work that we did. And so I loved it.
What kind of shows, what kind of movies have you gravitated towards in this time?
Yes. Well, I usually watch TV with my girlfriend, and I kind of like the more, escape from reality. We went back through a lot of, like, she hadn't seen Star Wars, so we watched all the Star Wars, we watched all the Harry Potters. We're now in the MCU right now, and so we're about halfway on that. And so I got all those out of the way, but we've been watching a ton of like reality television, like Big Brother sometimes. We like Masked Singer, but we also love all the 90 Day Fiancés. That's kind of been our go-to through this, is just kind of a release of circumstances and just kind of watching some wild stories play out before us. Like I've grown to love, I didn't really grow up watching a ton of reality television, but I've really grown to love just observing, the intricacies of like the human experience. It's cool. And that's one I think that like it plays out, so interestingly every time.
So, it's a tough film. It's a tough film to watch, but, I was really deeply moved by the end of it, and I felt your spirit throughout the film. What is something that you'd want sort of a viewer to do in the same way, or how do you feel like is the best way to experience this film?
Yeah, I do think that that's important to know going into it. It's not an easy watch, It's definitely intense, and it's very connected. It's very emotional. It's very raw. But at the end of the day, I think that that's the point of art, is to make you feel, to force you out of your box, to force you to acknowledge something in yourself, or acknowledge something about what you believe, or acknowledge something about the world, or, question your motives or your actions. And so I do think that this is a piece that it forces you out of your box. And that was ultimately, when I read the initial script, why I was like, because it just forced me to consider the circumstances. And, this film lives in the gray area, which I think is scary for a lot of people, but it's just the truth of our world. It's not so it's not white and black really ever. Very rarely do we have circumstances where it's like, okay, right and wrong, or, whatever. A lot of it is gray area. A lot of it is subjective. And this film is a perfect embodiment of that. And that's really what I hope the audience gets, is what the audience gets. I think that it is one of those things where people can feel completely different and get different things, and certain lines will jump out to them more than others in certain moments. And that's beautiful. Art is completely subjective. And so I'm really excited to see what the feedback is, and what people are, touched by, because I definitely was touched by things in this film as well.
I just wanted to let you know quickly that I'm so glad that sound and music play such a big role in this film, because I know that's very important to you as well
Yeah.
too. And I hope music continues to guide you as well in this
Thank you.
time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's one of the cool things is, Jonathan was so creative in the way the story was told, and the lighting. Even, like, he uses completely different shades of color in order to, set scenes in the right mood and kick them off on the right foot. And, because he was working in a confined space, like, he had to really use the, intangibles to bring in and evoke these emotions. So it's cool. But yeah, music is always a centering force for me, and it probably always will be.
I just want to thank you for today. Speaking with you is so wonderful, and the best into the future.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. It's always wonderful talking to you too. I'm sure, hopefully we do it again soon.
That would be amazing. Thank you again.